everybody. Welcome to the 20th Annual Green Tour. My name is Neil Bonsgard, and my pronouns are he and him, and I am the program manager of the Energy Challenge, which is a program of the Environmental Center. I'm joined here with my colleague, Lindsay Hardy, who you'll meet during the Q&A.
Okay, great, thank you. So thanks, Lindsay, for the introduction. My name is Ani Cash. As Lindsay said, I'm the program manager for the Rethink Waste project. And Lindsay and I have been trying for a while now to collaborate a little bit more through energy and waste. And this is a really great opportunity because the Green Tour is traditionally about energy savings and not so much about waste. But as we're finding out kind issue around construction. So I just wanted to give you a couple of statistics to kind of start it off. But my job here at the Environmental Center is just around waste reduction education in the county. The majority of my funding does come directly from Deschutes County Department of Solid Waste, and we work in partnership to give correct information to the public. So looking specifically at construction and demolition waste, so that's any waste that is created through construction or remodeling or demolition of a building. The EPA estimates somewhere around 548 million tons of construction and demolition waste was generated in the United States alone. In one specific year, they looked at 2015. So that's everything from concrete, asphalt, steel, wood, drywall, or anything that you can possibly think of. And a lot of those materials can be kept out of the landfill and put back into circulation. There are some great programs across the country starting to reuse asphalt and concrete in different ways, and also to take that wood out of the landfill so that other people can just use it, not recycle it, but actually use those pieces of wood. And looking at our own locale here, we in Deschutes County have one landfill that is not landfill down off of 27th, Southeast Bend. The not landfill is projected to be full by 2029. So that's less than 10 years away now. And that's pretty profound considering that as we grow more, Bend is the third fastest growing city in the nation, according to one poll. And that is significant. We're over 100,000 people just in the city here now. So thinking about the amount of building that has to happen to accommodate for that, it's a fair amount of waste that's happening. Our not landfill estimates, or our county estimates that about approximately 25% of our landfill is full of construction and demolition waste. So, thinking about that, Bend being a growing city, it's not a ton of demolition waste. It's mostly construction that's going on, and some remodeling for sure. You'll hear from Michelle later about some remodeling that she did in her house, but a lot of it is new construction because more and more people moving here. We just need more buildings to exist. Deschutes County and the Environmental Center and some politicians got together, and we put together the solid waste management plan to decide what's going to happen to our waste once the landfill does get full. And we've decided and the commissioners voted to site and build a new landfill in county. So that will happen when, it's in process already. But what we can do as individuals is try to keep as much waste out of that landfill that can be reused or recycled to prevent the landfill from filling up faster than we might think it's going to. So there are a couple of recommendations in that plan to do that, and a lot of it is aimed at increasing recycling of construction and demolition waste, as well as minimizing its disposal at the landfill and figuring out other places for it to go, like the restore, and you'll hear more about that as well later. So that's a little background about the Rethink Waste project and a little knowledge for you about construction and demolition waste. And I think that is pretty much all I've got for now.
All right, thanks for setting the stage for us, Ani. I'm really excited that we will be able to talk about a couple different phases of the different areas that we can reduce waste. And we'll start by talking a little bit about deconstruction and then looking at remodeling and then building a new home. And we have some folks here today who will be able to help us in each of those areas. But before we get too far along, I just want to take a minute to have everybody here introduce themselves. So Michelle, I'd like to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your project and what your motivations were for remodeling and making upgrades to your home?
Yeah, so I'm Michelle Porter, and I'm an economist here in Bend, and my husband and I purchased our house in 2015. It was built in 1992, so it was in need of some aesthetic upgrades and also some functional updates as well. Our main motivations were to improve the look of our home and also to reduce our carbon footprint, improve our comfort, and reduce our energy bills.
Great, thanks. And then Sophie, can you also introduce yourself and tell us what the Restore is? And I don't know if you have some numbers that you might be able to share to help set the stage about how much waste you help defer every year.
Sure. I'm Sophie Paez. I'm the Director of Retail Operations for Bend Redmond Habitat for Humanity. We had the Bend store here for a while and then merged with Redmond last year. And so we took on the Redmond Restore, which unfortunately closed in June. But we do hope to build another one soon. So I'll just kind of talk about Bend numbers, I guess. So the Restore is basically like a thrift store for Home Depot items plus furniture and decor. So pretty big resale store that accepts major appliances, like I said, furniture and hardware and tools and raw building materials. And kind of putting a number on what we divert, it's a little squirrely to do. Had a hard time finding some really solid numbers lately on how to figure that out, but I'm still using a conversion rate that the DEQ put out maybe 10 years ago, which is basically for every dollar that we sell, we divert 3.75 pounds of material. And so we are grossing in the neighborhood of 1.3 million annually. So that's a lot of pounds in theory that we're diverting just by facilitating reuse, giving people a place to put things, because as many of us know, Craigslist is also a squirrely sort of scenario. Sometimes.
Yeah, and your store has continued to grow and Bend. If y'all haven't visited the Restore, it's such a beautiful and welcoming building. And you all have continued to grow over the last couple of years. I feel like every time I'm there, there's something new, which is really showing that there's a demand for these materials, which makes it a really great resource for the community.
Yeah, and a shout out to Stacy Stemich, once again, sponsoring wonderful things. He was our architect on this cool building and continues to be a really great partner with us too.
Yeah, is really committed to a lot of the values that we're talking about here today. Yeah. So Jacob is also with Habitat. Jacob, can you introduce yourself and what your role is with Bend Redmond Habitat?
Sure. My name is Jacob, and I'm the Director of Construction for Bend Redmond Habitat. We average 5 to 15 homes a year, depending on volunteer outcome. So it'll be lower during 2020. And we provide affordable housing to Bend and Redmond residents. So that's our primary task. And partnering with Sophie every step of the way gives us an upper hand in reuse of materials and I would say efficient use of materials. So,
and the work that the Restore does helps to fund the work of building the homes as well, right?
That's right. So our Restore covers 100% of our overhead, which means any dollar donated by the community goes directly into building the homes, which is a tough task to do in nonprofit world. So 100% of our donations go straight to affordable housing in Deschutes County.
So many reasons to feel good about it.
Yeah.
All right, and Perry, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project? And then I was hoping you could just do a quick kind of big picture of why building better homes to begin with helps to divert waste in the long term. You're still on mute, Perry.
There we go. My name is Perry Brooks. I'm a partner in NZ Development. We're a newly formed development company that specializes in building net zero single family and multifamily houses in Central Oregon. We are actually finishing up on the first project. We are building net zero house that we're building on 14th and Albany. It is a 2,000 square foot single family residence with a 600 square foot ADU above a garage in the back of the house. In the bigger picture, really about why building high performance diverts in the long term. Obviously, there are the energy issues. By building a higher performing house, we're not obviously using any energy, which helps reduce our carbon footprint dramatically. In fact, when this house is done, it will have no carbon footprint for the duration of its life. And by building better and more efficient, we're always looking for efficiencies, and not having a lot of waste when we design these houses. So that for the long term is beneficial. And by building high performing houses, we, are building a better house. It's simply more durable. So you won't have a lot of the maintenance issues and a lot of having to redo things that would have been overlooked when they were building it. So that also helps divert a lot of waste from landfill.
Great, thanks, Perry. Okay, so I want to jump into our kind of first focus area and talk a little bit about deconstruction. So Ani, can you help us define what exactly that means when we talk about deconstruction?
Yeah, sure. So by definition, deconstruction is the systematic disassembly of a building for the purpose of recovering its materials for reuse or renovation or new product use. So it takes a lot of time. It takes more time than it would to just swing that sledgehammer. But the purpose is to take the pieces apart so that they can be donated to the restore or put on a free pile in your front yard that people can come collect them and reuse them in their construction rather than having to buy brand new materials.
Great, and Sophie, how does the restore either help with and encourage deconstruction with your operations?
So that's evolved a little bit over the years. There was a time, I want to say about 10 years ago, we actually had an AmeriCorps working on how we could become a bigger player in deconstruction locally. In certain markets, like San Francisco, for example, there's an organization that came out of there called the Reuse People, where they really figured it out how deconstruction can make sense for homeowners because they can appraise and put a real number on the materials being recovered and then offer a tax incentive that outweighs the extra cost of taking things apart. Here, both from the standpoint of the value of the materials, home from the 90s versus a home from the late 1800s, early 1900s, not as much value there. And then qualified appraisers are needed from a tax perspective to be able to take the deduction for people. And of course, this is all old news before the new tax laws, which are even probably a little bit more difficult to navigate. So there is, unfortunately, we don't have a financial incentive here. And our landfill tipping fees are very low. So there's not really a penalty for the generation of the waste either. So we're really just kind of leaning on each other from an ethical standpoint of doing the right thing. And that, that's tough because that doesn't always motivate people in the same way. But we did a really big project. We took down the Oregon State Police building, and that was a true deconstruction, and that was pretty incredible. But it was an all wood building. There was a lot of value. It was a government agency, so they were able to really look at that hard number of the waste, about $40,000 that it would have taken to dispose of that building. And so that worked as a full-on deconstruction project. But we have not really come upon many projects since that really penciled for us or the owner. So we have come to a cherry picking model. So we have we did pre-COVID. We have a team of volunteers led by a single staff member that will go and reclaim kitchens primarily. And then maybe decks, some windows, some doors, anything that has enough value that it's worth the time to take it out. So we just do just different terms for that: soft stripping, cherry picking, and that's really what we do at this point. But it's wonderful. We've had a lot of builders in town that have been, helpful in bringing us potential projects instead of getting all that nice cabinetry dumped in the.
Yeah, so that's a big thing that people try to salvage. Are there other things that you would recommend if somebody's redoing or doing a remodel that they try to save, or what kind of items are hot ticket items at the restore?
Solid doors, vinyl or wood, sometimes windows, are pretty much most of it. Fixtures, unfortunately, we get more bathroom sinks than we can sell. We get more toilets than we can sell. But cabinets in general, kind of regardless, are great of where they're coming from. So I'd say those are top of the list.
I know I saw when I was at Neil's house yesterday, he had some windows he had just gotten at the restore that he was hoping to replace on his house.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start to take a little bit of a look at remodeling. Michelle, you made quite a few upgrades to your home. You made some functional and some aesthetic. Can you tell us about some of the projects that you took on and why it was really important for you to reduce the amount of new materials that you used?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, let me just say that I think it's important to touch on the fact that we updated our entire house rather than building new. That reduced a substantial amount of waste, and research backs that it's greener to update an existing home than it is to build new. However, I understand the complications here in Bend with our growing population. We kind of can't get around that. But with regard to specific projects, we improved existing materials like walls and siding and decks simply by cleaning them and repairing and then either staining or painting them. Our house has cedar siding, and just by repainting that siding, which is from 1992, we were able to extend its useful life just with a fresh coat of paint, which I think is really awesome. We also have these beautiful cherry cabinets in our kitchen. Again, original cabinetry, but they had a lot of water stains. So rather than demolish and get rid of those cabinets, I just went through, cleaned them with water and vinegar, buffed them out with a little bit of mineral oil, and they look like new. And in fact, they look so good. We have a friend who is a realtor who came by and asked us at one point, are these new cabinets? And they're not. So those were some really cool projects that we did that were very basic that anyone can do and salvage materials rather than, tearing them down. Probably my favorite thing we did around here, we had a bathroom that was dated, but in excellent condition. And so rather than demolish the bathroom and, be throwing out the fixtures and the countertop and the toilet and the tiles and all the rest, I just went through and I redid the surfaces myself. So yeah, you can see pictures here. I went through and used hand stencils and paint to redo the floor tiles and put a seal on that so it's protected and usable, with showering and normal bathroom activity. The other thing I did, I went to the countertop and I used Stone Coat Countertops, which is a company based in Grants Pass, Oregon, and I used the epoxy to pour a new countertop on top of the existing counter so it looks like concrete. And then in addition to that, I went through and, cleaned and buffed out the cabinetry added new poles on the doors and or on the cabinet doors, and then repainted the walls and added new fixtures. And the other really cool thing about this project is that it saved me thousands of dollars. You know, it was much less expensive than having someone come out and demo and do all new. And then the final thing I think you asked about was why it was important for us to reduce our waste. And we wanted to reduce the amount of new materials we were using simply because we didn't want to unnecessarily contribute to the climate crisis. And I think in everything we are doing right now, something as simple as making a meal has a carbon footprint. And so it's important, if we want to avoid the worst of the climate crisis, that we all start thinking in terms of our carbon footprint in everything we do. And that means including housing-related decisions.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I am so inspired by your countertops. I have a manufactured home from the early 2000s, and all of our counters could use some updating. So I'm definitely going to be picking your brain on this. And once we wrap up with the green tour and I have some time to think about it.
That sounds great.
So Sophie and Ani, I was wondering if you had any other cool examples you've seen of people getting creative in the community who are doing projects like this. I know that the Restore has the furniture flip every year, and we see some really cool projects come out of there. Are there any other great examples that you want to share with folks that might help inspire some more projects?
I haven't seen it in person, but somebody needs to help me out with the name of the coffee shop on the west side with the swings.
Oh.
Anybody? I apologize that I don't know the name of that, but they used a lot of things from here to redo that. Brave Collective is also another local business. I love it when businesses do it. You know, homes are wonderful. There are millions of, you know, well, maybe not millions, lots of homes that have been redone through the Restore, but I love it when local businesses are able to use stuff to enhance the image and kind of elevate the idea of reuse. And there's probably an audience member out there that knows which coffee shop I'm talking
Kevista.
about.
Someone said.
What's that?
Kevista.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Kevista. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. There's probably others that I'm not even aware of because I don't get out enough.
Yeah. Me too lately, but I have seen some really cool examples. I've seen I agree with you, Sophie, in businesses, it's really fun to see just because more people come through and more people get inspired. And I dig that. One thing I've seen that's pretty cool is people use like doors or windows suspended from the ceiling as dividers. I've seen that in a couple of restaurants and in someone's home as well. It just had a space that needed to be divided. That's pretty cool and creative, and you can always get like, you know, how many doors does the Restore have? Like so many that are, you know, I'm sure and you get more all the time. Another thing I saw that was really cool was a reclaimed bowling alley. The wood, they were I don't know if they tore the bowling alley down or whatever, but they took the wood out of the lanes and they used that wood to redo the floor. And it was cool because it had the dings and nicks of all the bowling alleys, the bowling balls, and it had that kind of story with it, which I always think is really cool when places have stories.
Yeah, that reminds me actually, so also back in when we were really working on actual deconstructions, we did take down all of the 70s diagonal cedar siding from the Inn of the Seventh Mountain, and all that wood, Graydon Murphy, another environmental center person, ran that project, and all that was sold to a company in California and used in retail accent walls, kind of sold for a good price. So it's cool when we can find old nice wood. There is a good bit of that, I think, around. And
yeah, and one other thing I just thought of, I remember seeing the article about the awesome, very unique carpeting from the Portland International Airport that all got ripped out, and they had initially intended, I think, on sending it to a waste to energy facility, maybe the one in Salem, Marion County. but 5 acres of it or something, some acreage, I don't know, ended up being repurposed and used as like furniture upholstery and little mini carpets that people could buy to like have in their homes as like a, hey, remember that time when we went to Paris when we used to be able to fly for fun? That kind of stuff.
Nice.
So they can still take pictures of their shoes on the carpet, pretend they're traveling.
Yeah.
Great. All right. There were a couple other examples too on the green tour this year. And more they keep coming up, like as I talk to people more and they're like, oh yeah, and we did this from the restore and this and this. And we had another homeowner who redid a 1920s house and made energy upgrades and some other upgrades and then built an ADU. And they used repurposed doors. They also talked a little bit about how when you have a really small space, such as their ADU, is great because they could actually find enough tile to like do their bathroom and their entryway, because people have, a couple square feet left over. And so they said they just searched and kept going back and they found some really beautiful tile for their bathroom and entryway. So you'll be able to see that in their video too. Which was pretty neat to see. And they had also reused some cedar fencing that they took down when they built the ADU for the siding on their porch too. So it's cool to just see all the creative ways that you can tie all of these things in, especially bridging between the old site and the new home, and being able to carry some of that character through is pretty neat. All right, well, let's jump into a little bit of new construction, and then we can kind of open this conversation up more generally, but I want to make sure we give everybody a chance to get involved here in the conversation. So Perry, there are a lot of really cool things that you've done on your site from the energy perspective and the waste side. But one of my favorite things was that the first time I visited your site, you said, hey, come here, I got to show you my dumpster. And you generated so little waste on your job site. I was hoping that you could share a little bit about why your type of construction has less waste and what you did to reduce waste on the site.
Sure. We, in building the house, our methodology for construction is using SIP panels, which are structurally insulated panels. Essentially, it is EPS foam that is sheathed on either side with OSB. It's half-inch OSB. And the reason why we used it is a variety of reasons. One, it produces 79% less waste in the construction of SIP panels versus stick framing. And two, it provides a really high performance interior space, which allows us to get to net zero pretty easily. The dumpster that you're referring to, I don't know if you have a picture of it, literally at the end of the construction of both the house and the ADU, roughed in, was my little personal 3-yard trailer of trash. But we made a concerted effort into separating the wood waste. So we had the wood waste that we could go recycle and get shredded and composted, and we had the wood waste that we had to take to the dump, which is what was in my trailer. And we've also made another concerted effort into separating recyclable from non-recyclable. And since that time, we've been able to, other than the sheetrockers having some of their leftover materials, we've been able to use the 50-gallon trash can that was provided to most residents in the city. And more about the SIPs is, it gives us, like I mentioned, it gives us a really high performing interior space. Do you have the picture? No. You can see that the SIP panels, they are engineered and cut by a computer, so there's little waste in the framing itself. Is this the video?
They were photos we pulled out of the video, so they're not super high quality. You can see the trailer in your video, though. I guess I don't have the picture saved.
Okay. So you can imagine that the panels themselves arrive, pre-cut to the nth degree because they have to be so super tight. And there's there is no waste with the panels themselves. Now, there's some argument about the fabrication of the panels. They do use a foam, EPS foam, but the EPS is easily recyclable. but any extra that they don't use in that particular design will just be used into the next fabrication of the wall system itself. And we can get the exact dimension of the lumber within the panels themselves, because there is some lumber for structural purposes for ridge beams and other such things. And yeah, and the OSB is a recyclable product in and of itself. The OSB is fabricated up in Canada, and the biggest sheets of OSB in the world, and shipped down to Puyallup for the production of the panels.
Awesome, thanks, Perry. And so Habitat is starting to look at some similar processes. Jacob, can you tell us a little bit about, well, first I wanted to hear what kinds of waste you might normally find on a construction site, and then what kinds of waste you're hoping to reduce with this new process that Habitat is starting.
Sure. I think diverting waste has two big factors to it in new construction specifically. One is cost. The less you buy, the less money you spend, the cheaper per square foot. And the other is expertise. The fewer mistake cuts made, the fewer pieces of material that are tossed out as a result. Habitat, we rely on volunteers, so we kind of lean towards the cost side in cost savings on that end. And we've gone towards pre-building our walls as panels that can be lifted onto a trailer and then taken out to a job site and stood up on site. And so starting to do a panelized wall system lets us build it offsite, lets us have plenty of oversight to volunteer labor, meaning they're not going to cut a 20-foot 2x6 down to an 8-foot stud when we need that specific piece for something else in a project. And so panelized wall systems really allow us to oversee waste in a controlled environment, which is hard to achieve when you're building on site. And then the other thing I think is we recently took over a warehouse space. So part of cost savings is having some place to store all this material that you want to utilize either down the road in construction to some extent, and having the space to keep those cut pieces until we roll trusses and then use those cut pieces as nailers for sheetrock or something like that, really keep us from just tossing it, you know, off the floor system straight into a dump trailer that's going to the landfill. So I think just having a controlled environment to build panelized wall systems has been a huge asset. And I think also our warehouse is about 20 feet from the restore. So any, you know, sheets of OSB or plywood that aren't utilized when we cut out a window, for example, if it's large enough, we can just walk it over to the restore warehouse and then they can sell it from that capacity. So it keeps a lot of our material out of the landfill, just in the framing, kind of dirt to dried in phase.
That's cool. I like the image of you all bringing over those extra pieces of wood and dropping them off, being like, here you go, Sophie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. we literally keep, you know, a pallet-sized bin for stuff that we can take over to the restore, another bin for lumber with paint, and another bin for clean lumber that we can recycle into the, you know, mulch aspect. So it's built into our process in order to keep our landfill cost as low as possible. We also, by building 10 homes a year, we can, you know, if we have extra spanners between trusses, we can put it onto the house right next to it. So by building more than one house in one geographic location really helps us utilize every bit of each lumber pack or each roof pack as we go. So it's helpful.
Great. And so as there are with, you know, all of these decisions have multiple reasons for making them. And we see a lot with green building that there's a lot of layers of benefits. The other day you spoke a little bit about being able to not speed up the permit process, but take advantage of that process by building this way. Can you just elaborate a little bit on some of the other benefits that you're seeing from doing your panelized construction in the warehouse?
Sure. I think anyone who's ever done anything in construction knows that you have to double the budget and double the timeline. So whatever you get told up front, just double it. And that's seems to be the case in permitting as well. So what we've done is, while projects maybe we can't build on site, we can pre-build those walls in our warehouse. So as soon as the permit clears, we may have 3, 4, 5 houses worth of walls that we can just start trailering out to the job site and standing up. So we break our volunteers into teams to transfer the panelized walls. One team stays on site and we just kind of knock it out pretty quick. So it expedites our timeline, which also translates to cost savings on the build site.
Yeah, I think it's just so cool how all of this is coming together for you all, and how you've really nailed into every step in the process to make it as efficient as possible, from time, cost, materials, and environmentally. It's, I think, just such a cool project that you all are undertaking. So if there was a builder out there who was interested in pursuing something like this, or looking at panelized construction, where might they start on a project? And Perry or Jacob, if either of you want to chime in on that.
Well, for utilizing SIPs, it's really an easy process. Once you have your home designed, you can literally submit it to this Premier Building Systems or any other SIP manufacturer, and they will tell you pretty quickly whether or not they can panelize your house. And once they make that decision to move forward, they produce any of the shop drawings that show the house in a panelized system way, and then you go through those and make sure they meet your specifications and dimensions are all correct, and then you okay them, and then they get shipped to you and you get to stand them up.
So Perry, do they have some designs that are already made for SIPs homes, or are folks submitting designs from their architect? Does your architect or designer need to specialize in that?
Your architect or designer does not need to specialize in SIP construction. There are resources out there for pre-designed houses that are specific to SIP. There's a guy up in Washington. There's another one in Vancouver. You can buy the plans from him, which is cost effective as well.
Great, thanks Perry. Jacob, did you have anything you wanted to add on there?
I'm a big fan of SIPs. I think they do this panelized wall system down to a T. They just have it all dialed in. Unfortunately for us, SIPs usually get installed with a crane, especially as you go 2 stories and they're taller, so it's not volunteer friendly in our capacity. And so we're kind of alluding to what SIPs panels have already dialed in. So I'm a big fan of SIPs, and there are a lot of ways of building right now that in recent years have become more accepted by building inspectors. ICF's insulated concrete forms is another easy example. There's a variety of options out there. I think it's important to know what process someone wants to pursue up front. So far enough up front when you're buying a piece of property, before you've decided any of the specifics, you want to know kind of what track you're going down. And builders honestly want to be creative. Builders like Perry that have time and the ability to really dive in and produce this quality product at the end. You see a really big difference in that style of home, and in both the comfort level and the life cycle cost of that house. So we're trying to emulate some of what Perry has dialed in our capacity in any way we can. So I think any research will lead you in the right direction, and then reach out to a contractor and they'll let you know if they can do it or not.
You mentioned about the city and the permitting process. We had a very elongated permitting process with the city because they truly did not understand the panelized systems. There are other SIP houses in Bend, for sure. There's at least a dozen of them, but they've been constructed over the last 20 years. And so you get new inspectors and new planning examiners don't understand it. And interestingly enough, when we were doing our seismic, our shear inspection, the inspector had never seen a SIP house before. So I was instructing him as to what to look for, your nailing pattern, your screws and all that. It was fairly amusing.
Yep, that's the case in a lot of these, I guess, updated techniques, I guess, so.
Yeah, and it's definitely a learning process, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot, that even events like this where folks can get together and collaborate and learn about new things, or even learn that there's somebody else who might be able to help them out there if they want to get started, because sometimes taking on something that's totally new can be really overwhelming when you don't know where to start or who to ask questions to. So even just having chats like this are super helpful too. Perry, we had a question come in. Oh, actually from Michelle. Michelle, do you want to ask Perry your question? Oh, you're
Sorry, yeah, I did unmute, sorry. Yeah, so does the panelized wall system, does that reduce noise pollution for neighboring properties when construction is occurring, so that you're not having noise and work done on site?
Definitely. The walls are typically 8 inches thick or 6 inches thick. As an example, we're building one house off of 14th, and 14th gets a fair amount of traffic. When you close the windows and doors, you literally cannot hear anything off of 14th at all. So I don't really have a specific number or decibel level, but it definitely, just anecdotally, definitely, decreases the amount of noise pollution you get inside the house.
And then what about?
That's awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I was going to say, what about during the actual construction for people who live around the site? As we all know, that new construction can be pretty noisy. Does it help at all with any of that noise pollution for other people around you?
There's definitely a lot of hammering and sawing still.
Still happening. It's still a construction.
Huh?
Oh,
yeah,
it's still a construction site.
Yeah, it's construction. It goes, I guess if there's any reduction in kind of construction noise, it's the mere fact that we can put this house up in about a week, and have the house up with the roof on in a week and a half. So it's a very expedited time frame in which to get the house actually built.
So how does that compare with a normal time frame? How long would it take to put a normal house up that doesn't have the panelized system?
It depends on your framing crew and a lot of other factors, but I would say it probably cuts it in half, if not a little more so.
Jacob, what
That's
are
amazing.
your end?
Yeah, I think the speed of SIPs, I mean, if you got a crew of 5 people out there just putting the panels and roof on, it's like Legos. It's just fun to watch. It makes you want to pull a lawn chair out, and it's the same with our modular walls. We spend all this time leading up to footings and foundation, and then you blink and 3 weeks later there are 3 houses with walls and trusses getting laid out. So it's almost like nothing until it's very surprising at how fast it goes.
We anticipated that if we had a full crew of 4 or 5 people working on the house and the ADU, we probably could have had both of them up with a roof on and framed internally in 3 weeks.
That's great. All right. Oh, I just had another question and now I'm trying to remember what it was. Do you all have anything that you want to add on to any of each other's comments?
The question was, are the panels ever used for retrofit, for example, added to the exterior of a house originally framed with 2x4? I believe you can. It's not really cost effective. You probably would, build the house around the old one and then demo it. I don't really know if I've ever heard of that application being used. So I can't adequately answer, sorry.
All right. Oh, I was hoping, I wanted to talk really quickly about the furniture flip event that Habitat and the Restore do, because it's a good, inspiring event that can get all of our creative juices flowing. Sophie, is that going to happen this year, or what does that look like?
So it was scheduled for April.
Okay.
And time will tell, I guess. Bandwidth for our organization is challenged. We are a volunteer-based organization. Things happen when we have all the help we need, and we're running at about a third of the ranks right now. So our hours are limited in the store, so it's pretty low on the priority list, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things right now.
Do you want to tell us what it is, and maybe we can recruit a volunteer to organize it for you?
Oh, sure. So the flip, which has sort of evolved with in the last couple of years to incorporate trash formations, if any of you remember that event that Packet Liquidators started. Our flip that started was very much about creative reuse around more utilitarian household items. So furniture, patio things, garden art, and that sort of thing. And we would have a competition. People would get some themes, and then they'd get their materials from us or wherever. And we just kind of have a gallery show and a party around it, and then sell the items. And this last year, it was going to change up quite a bit. We made a lot of changes. Ani was part of that conversation. And like I said, incorporating trash formations, which is much more of a spontaneous art creation event. So we were kind of combining those things. And the whole purpose of it is just to have fun with reuse and get people inspired about tackling fun projects for their homes, you know, with the old versus the new.
Awesome. All right. You know, Ani, I don't know if I ever told you this, but a few years ago, so the Restore has, I don't know if you still have a free section of just like stuff, really random things. And probably like 8 years ago now, I got these drawers of a desk that were, that I painted and were the shelves in our bathroom to put all our like shampoo and stuff on around our old clawfoot tub. And then they became Ani's computer monitor stand in her desk for many years. And then now I don't know if they have another life or not. But there's always something that you can find, and it's really fun to go and just search for things in the Restore. Even if you don't even have an idea when you're going in, there's usually something fun that you can find. And then I also just remembered that one of the sites on the tour actually got their dual fuel stove at the Restore. Which is a really cool stove application that you can learn a little bit more about their site too. So you can really find everything from old desk drawers that don't have a desk attached to them to really high-end appliances too. All right, does anybody, do we want to, do any of you have anything else you would like to add as we wrap up here? We just have a couple minutes left. And I'm going to bring up some slides just to close out. So if anybody has a closing thought you want to share, Ani.
Put me on the spot. No, those drawers are now, one of them is in my cubicle that I'm not at anymore, but someday I'm going to go back any week now. And I use it as a little side table for my comfortable chair. So yeah, I mean, and it's just a drawer that's painted orange, and I think it's really cool. Yeah, I shop at the Restore often, and I'm always figuring out new things to do. I'm currently working on this, the drop ceiling in my current office, aka dining room, and I've been back and forth to Restore trying to find little bits and pieces to make that happen. So if that's not inspiring, I don't know what else is.
I thought I'd bring up, there was a post on the chat just about, you know, the barriers to deconstruction being more viable. And it just made me think of another one just to put out there. You know, the lead law that went into effect 2011, somewhere in there, also kind of makes it complicated because the best salvage is usually coming out of older, really, you know, pre-1970s homes, but anything older than 78, is it 78? You know, you need a licensed professional trained in with the lead certification to take that stuff down and take it apart. And there again, you're adding cost and complication for, you know, the person doing the work. And so that's just another challenge of deconstruction. I think it always comes back to, if things are put together with taking them apart in mind, that's what's really going to change that unfortunate cycle.
Yeah, it's an important conversation to be having now, especially as we're talking about new construction a lot in this event, that we always think design thinking about the future. So if you can't put solar on now, thinking about the design in the future, what if you want to do that? So always making sure that you're not designing opportunities out of the system so that you just can't take advantage of them. So that's a great idea to be adding in there, designing so that you can use those materials in a future life and actually access them. Okay, we just had one other question that I wanted to address really quickly and we'll wrap up. And maybe this is a question for you, Jacob, on any ideas on how to encourage advanced framing. There's seems to be, sorry, it uses a lot less lumber. Do you have any advances? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I can take it from there, Lindsay. There is an energy code checklist on every home that gets built here in Bend, and you basically have 4 categories. You have to choose how you're going to meet this increased efficiency in energy code. And there's an executive order 20-4 that is trying to align our building code in line with an international IECC code that aligns with a zero energy home. So what Perry is doing is where a lot of our building codes are leading. Advanced framing is one of those check boxes on the energy code checklist. And so right now, I think you could call it a reach code. So it's an option for builders. But we are seeing trends in the building code, specifically in Oregon, that are pushing towards the zero energy home checklist model. So, for example, advanced framing techniques, Energy Trust of Oregon has an EPS framing that's free literature that goes out to all the builders. Habitat, we are building 10 cottages that are zero energy homes on the west side. And so we are diving deep into that advanced framing practices, kind of every step of the way, how to insulate under slab and perimeter slab, all the way up to the U value of the windows being more efficient to a whole house balanced ventilation system. So advanced framing is being pursued. I don't know, there are a lot of different ways of getting into that advanced framing. Alternating studs, so you have a larger stud cavity, is one option, or continuous R value with extruded insulation on the outside. I could geek out on this all day, so I love this stuff. But I would say as a whole that Oregon is more advanced than other states in getting towards a more efficient building code.
I will point out real quick that California actually went net zero residential construction at the beginning of 2020.
And there's a new energy code. The last one was 2017 update in Oregon. The next one will be 2021. And then we're trying to get to this zero energy, I want to say 2026?
2023.
Thank you, 2023. So it's coming down the pike, and they're just doing small adjustments to increase the builders to get there.
Yeah, and it's just one of those other examples where, you know, once you start to look at these for one benefit of either energy efficiency or reducing waste, you see that there's all these other multiple benefits. So really just makes sense all around to be reducing construction waste and looking at building more energy efficient and durable homes too. So, okay, well, just one last plug. We have one more event this afternoon about backyard ADUs and infill development. So you can check that out this afternoon at 5. And then you'll be able to check out some of the sites that we were talking about on our website, as well as visit CORE's site in person. There is zero energy housing development that is focusing on housing affordability, and you can sign up for that on our website. So thank you again to all of you for being here today. It's always a pleasure to get to sit around and hang out with people and talk about really exciting and cutting edge ideas. So thanks for spending your time with us. And we appreciate all the work you're doing in our community. All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.